I get it when you're about to drop a serious chunk of cash on a floor-standing speaker. The anxiety spikes the moment you start picturing it in your living room. You wonder if the size will swallow your space, if the bass will hit the right notes, and whether your amp can actually drive something that looks as serious as this. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's walk through what the ELAC Uni-Fi reference actually does in a real house, not just what the spec sheet says, and see if it's the kind of commitment you want to make. First off, the Uni-Fi reference is built around a three-way architecture that ELAC has been refining for years. The most noticeable design choice is the concentric tweeter sitting right in the center of the mid-range driver. In practice, that geometry means the high frequencies and the mids come out of essentially the same point in space, which helps keep the imaging tight when you're watching a movie or listening to a live-recorded album. I tried it in a mid-sized living room with a modest 8-foot ceiling, positioning the speaker about a foot off the wall on a sturdy stand. The soundstage felt surprisingly wide for a single tower, piano notes landed cleanly across the room, and vocal placement stayed anchored without the hollow feel you sometimes get with separate tweeter and mid drivers. The dual flared slot ports are another real-world benefit. They're not just a visual flourish, they give the speaker a smoother low-frequency roll-off, which translates to tighter, more controlled bass without needing an extra subwoofer for every movie scene. In a test with a few action sequences, the rumble stayed punchy but never boomy, and the bass didn't bleed into the next room. That said, the ports are fairly large, so the speaker's footprint is about 13 inches wide and 40 inches tall. If you're in a tight apartment or have a bookshelf that barely clears a doorway, you'll need to measure twice before you even think about getting one. One practical trade-off that shows up after you hook the Uni-Fi up to a decent amp, something that can comfortably deliver 150W into 8, is that the speaker can be a bit demanding on the power front. Pairing it with a low-output integrated amp left the upper mids sounding a touch thin, especially at lower listening levels. When I switched to a solid-state receiver with a higher current reserve, the dynamics opened up and the treble shimmer became more refined. So the rule of thumb here is, don't expect the speaker to magically boost a weak amp. Think of it as a partnership where the amp needs to have enough muscle to let the three-way design breathe. Who should walk away with this tower? If you have a dedicated listening room, a home theater setup that already includes a center channel, surround speakers, and maybe a sub, the Uni-Fi reference slots in nicely as the front left or right. Its sleek black baffle with walnut sides blends well with both modern and classic interiors, so aesthetics won't be a compromise. Audiophiles who value accurate imaging and a smooth transition from mids to highs will appreciate the concentric driver, especially on recordings with complex acoustic spaces. Think orchestral pieces where you want every instrument to sit in its own place. The speaker also handles high-resolution streaming services without sounding strained, making it a solid choice for those who stream lossless music as much as they binge movies. On the flip side, if your primary listening is on a compact sofa in a studio apartment, you might find the Uni-Fi a little too imposing. The size makes placement a juggling act, and the need for a capable amp adds to the overall budget. For someone who's just getting into hi-fi and is still experimenting with speaker placement, a smaller bookshelf model or a two-way floor standing might give you more flexibility without the same power demands. Also, if you're hoping to rely on the tower alone for deep, room-shaking bass, you'll probably want to add a subwoofer. The dual ports improve low-end control, but they don't replace the visceral impact a dedicated sub can provide in larger rooms. Another hidden aspect is the finish. ELAC offers the tower in a premium black front with walnut side panels, which looks elegant, but the lacquer can show fingerprints if you're not careful. In a high-traffic family room, you might find yourself wiping it down more often than you'd like. The cast chassis does a good job of keeping the internal components sealed, so the speakers are resistant to dust, but they're still a piece of furniture you'll want to protect from accidental bumps. So, summarizing the practical strengths, a three-way design with a concentric tweeter that delivers precise imaging, dual flared ports that tighten the bass response, and an aesthetic that can serve as a visual centerpiece. Weaknesses boil down to size, the necessity for a robust amp, and the occasional need for a subwoofer if you crave that earth-shaking low end. The value isn't just in the headline specs, it's in how those design choices translate to everyday listening, and in the